The view from the 42nd floor of the Obsidian Tower was undeniably breathtaking. City lights bled through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, casting long, sharp shadows across the imported Italian marble. The gentle clinking of crystal champagne flutes and the low hum of classical music masked the venomous whispers that always accompanied my family gatherings. I stood near the edge of the sprawling living room, nursing a glass of still water with a slice of lemon. Unlike the sea of glittering designer gowns and ostentatious jewelry that filled the penthouse, I wore a plain, charcoal cashmere sweater, dark denim, and comfortable loafers. I liked the quiet simplicity. Aunt Beatrice, however, despised simplicity. She swept through the room like a hurricane draped in a loud, heavily logoed Gucci dress, her wrists heavy with layered gold bracelets. This was her grand family reunion, a night specifically orchestrated to showcase her newly acquired lease on this $35,000 a month penthouse. She had spent the last 2 hours parading guests through the rooms, loudly bragging about the panoramic views and how only the elite could afford to breathe the air in this specific zip code. I watched her approach, a tight, artificial smile painted over her face. "Maya," Beatrice purred, her voice dripping with a condescending sweetness that made my cousins snicker. "I am honestly surprised you showed up." I sent the invitation out of pure familial obligation. She deliberately paused, her eyes raking over my unbranded sweater with profound disgust. "Tell me, how is the little scrubbing business going? Still wiping down toilets for minimum wage?" She laughed, a sharp, grating sound. "I did not run a scrubbing business. I owned Apex Property Holdings, a corporate entity that managed and owned over 40 luxury residential skyscrapers. But to Beatrice, if it didn't have a recognizable luxury label, it was dirt." Before I could offer a calm reply, her golden child, my cousin Chloe, stumbled. The stem of her fragile wine glass snapped in her manicured hand. A dark, crimson splash of Cabernet Sauvignon hit the pristine white Persian rug, blooming like an ugly bruise. Chloe gasped dramatically, while the surrounding relatives formed an immediate, horrified circle around the stain. Beatrice's face flushed an angry red. She snapped her fingers loudly, turning her piercing gaze toward me. The entire room fell silent. "Well? Don't just stand there," Beatrice snapped. Her previous fake sweetness entirely vanished. She pointed a sharp fingernail directly at the ruined rug. "This is exactly what you do for a living. Go to the kitchen, find some carpet cleaner and get down on your knees. Fix this mess before it sets." My Uncle Richard chuckled from the corner. "Come on, Maya. Earn your keep for the free food you've been eating tonight. You couldn't afford a single appetizer here on your own." I took a slow, measured sip of my water. The ice clinked gently against the glass. I looked directly into Beatrice's eyes, my expression entirely blank, my pulse steady. "I am a guest here, Beatrice," I stated calmly, my voice low but carrying effortlessly through the quiet room. "I am not your maid." Beatrice's eyes widened in sheer outrage. She took a step closer, her voice dropping into a harsh hiss. "You are an embarrassment to this family. You show up to my luxury penthouse looking like a vagrant. If you refuse to be useful, then leave. Right now. You are uninvited. Get out, Maya." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or shed a single tear of humiliation. I simply placed my water glass on a silver tray, the ice giving one final, quiet clink against the crystal. "Have a wonderful evening, Beatrice," I said, my tone entirely devoid of emotion. I turned on my heel and walked toward the back hallway, leaving the glittering room behind. As I walked away, I could hear my cousin Chloe's high-pitched, theatrical laugh echoing down the corridor. She had instantly recovered from her trauma and was now loudly fawning over her fiancé, Julian. Julian was a loud, brash junior investment banker who drove a leased silver Porsche and wore a bulky gold watch that I knew, from a single glance, was a clever replica. My family worshipped him. He was their golden goose, the man who had supposedly co-signed this very lease for Beatrice, cementing their fraudulent status in high society. I pressed the heavy metal button for the service elevator. The ride down to the ground floor was completely silent, the steel box smelling faintly of industrial cleaning supplies. It was a smell I actually respected. It smelled like honest work, a concept my relatives knew absolutely nothing about. Stepping out into the loading dock, the cool night air hit my face. I walked past the line of idling luxury cars and bored valets, heading toward my unassuming 5-year-old dark blue Volvo sedan parked in the private, owner-exclusive bay. The head valet, a young man named Leo, rushed over, his posture straightening immediately. "Miss Lynn, leaving so soon. Is everything all right upstairs?" he asked respectfully. "Everything is fine, Leo," I replied, handing him a crisp $100 bill for his vigilance. "Have a quiet shift." Sitting in the leather seat of my car, I pulled out my phone. I didn't open social media to vent, nor did I block their numbers in a fit of rage. I opened the encrypted Apex Property Holdings administrative portal. My thumb tapped across the screen, pulling up the master tenant file for Obsidian Tower, Penthouse 4201. Lessee, Beatrice Vance. Co-signer, Julian Thorne. I scrolled down to the financial ledger. Beatrice was incredibly arrogant for someone whose account showed a bright red pending status for the current month's rent. The $35,000 wire transfer had bounced exactly 48 hours ago due to insufficient funds from Julian's supposedly bottomless offshore accounts. Furthermore, the lease agreement explicitly stated a strict occupancy limit of 15 individuals for private gatherings without prior management approval. The penalty for violation was $5,000. There was also a non-negotiable clause regarding the $70,000 security deposit for the custom furnishings, including the imported Persian rug Chloe had just ruined with cheap Cabernet. My family was currently 42 floors above me, drinking champagne, toasting to Julian's phantom wealth and mocking my simple clothes. They were aggressively celebrating a kingdom they did not own, inside a castle they could not even afford. I dialed a number. It rang only once. "Marcus," I said as my lead property manager answered. "Good evening, Miss Lynn. Is there an issue at the Obsidian?" His voice was sharp and immediately attentive. "I need you to draft a formal notice for Penthouse 4201, I instructed, watching the glowing lights of my skyscraper through the windshield. "Flag the account for an immediate, unannounced damage inspection tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. sharp. Document the unauthorized event capacity." "Understood. Will there be anything else?" Marcus asked, the sound of his keyboard clacking rapidly in the background. "Yes," I added softly, a cold smile finally touching the corners of my mouth. "Prepare the preliminary eviction paperwork. Julian Thorne's financial screening needs a manual audit. I suspect his income verification documents were entirely fabricated. Right away, ma'am. I will have the file on your desk by 8 a.m. I ended the call and started the engine. The trap was set. All I had to do now was let them trip the wire. At exactly 8:55 a.m., I pulled my Volvo back into the VIP bay of the Obsidian Tower. Today, the plain charcoal sweater was gone, replaced by a sharply tailored navy blue Tom Ford suit and a vintage Cartier watch. Marcus was waiting in the grand marble lobby, holding a sleek silver tablet. "Good morning, Miss Lynn," he greeted me, his posture impeccable. "The audit is complete. It is worse than we anticipated." We stepped into the private, gold-trimmed owner's elevator, a car entirely separate from both the guest and service lifts. As we ascended at a rapid clip toward the 42nd floor, Marcus briefed me. "Julian Thorne's income statements are amateur forgeries. His primary checking account currently holds a balance of exactly $432.16. The $35,000 rent transfer was flagged for insufficient funds. Furthermore, building security footage confirms 42 guests entered the penthouse last night, explicitly violating the 15-person limit." I nodded, my expression completely blank. "Perfect. Let us proceed." At exactly 9 a.m., Marcus knocked firmly on the heavy mahogany doors of Penthouse 4201. It took 3 full minutes before the door swung open. Beatrice stood there, her eyes bloodshot, wrapped in a chaotic silk robe. The remnants of last night's fake glamour hung heavy in the air, mixed with the sour smell of stale wine. When her eyes landed on me, her confusion instantly morphed into venomous rage. "Maya? What is wrong with you?" she hissed, gripping the doorframe. "Did you seriously come back here to beg for a handout? I told you last night, you are not welcome. Unless you brought your scrubbing brushes to fix the rug, get out of my sight before I call building security." Marcus stepped forward smoothly, blocking her attempt to slam the door. "Good morning, Miss Vance. I am Marcus, the lead property manager for the Obsidian Tower. We are conducting an immediate, Mandatory compliance inspection regarding multiple lease violations, Beatrice scoffed, crossing her arms defensively. Lease violations? Do you have any idea who you are talking to? Julian. She shrieked over her shoulder. Julian, get out here. The building staff is harassing me. Julian emerged from the master bedroom, rubbing his face. He wore expensive-looking pajama pants and an arrogant scowl. What's the problem here? He demanded, puffing out his chest. He glared at Marcus, completely ignoring me. Listen, pal, I am the co-signer on this lease. I pay $35,000 a month to keep you employed. You have exactly 10 seconds to leave this hallway, or I am calling the building owner and having you fired on the spot. I did not blink. I did not raise my voice. I simply stepped slightly ahead of Marcus, my hands calmly clasped in front of me. That will be quite difficult, Julian, I stated, the cold authority in my voice slicing through his bravado. Julian finally looked at me, a sneer forming. And why is that, Maya? Are you going to clean his office for him? Marcus adjusted his glasses, his tone remaining rigorously professional. It will be difficult, Mr. Thorne, because the owner of this building does not take phone calls from fraudulent tenants. And more importantly, she is standing right in front of you. Marcus gestured respectfully toward me. Miss Lynn is the founder and CEO of Apex Property Holdings. She owns this penthouse, this tower, and the very floor you are currently standing on. Beatrice's jaw dropped, her eyes darting wildly between Marcus's serious face and my tailored suit. The silence in the hallway was absolute, broken only by the distant hum of the central air conditioning. I stepped past a frozen Beatrice, walking directly into the living room. The Persian rug was indeed ruined, a massive purple stain dried into the woven silk. As for your payment, I continued, turning to face Julian, whose arrogant scowl was rapidly melting into a mask of pure panic. Your $35,000 wire transfer bounced at exactly 4:12 p.m. yesterday. Your fabricated W-2 forms have been forwarded to our legal department. You do not pay anyone's salary, Julian. In fact, as of this morning, you are officially trespassing on my property. Beatrice stammered, her mouth opening and closing in shock. This is a sick joke. An elaborate prank, she stammered again, her voice lacking its usual piercing volume. You are a cleaner, Maya. Your own parents said you clean buildings for a living. I manage the corporate cleaning contracts for 47 commercial and residential skyscrapers, Beatrice. There is a profound difference, I corrected her quietly. I extended my right hand. Marcus immediately placed a thick, meticulously organized manila folder into my palm. I dropped it onto the imported glass coffee table. It landed with a heavy, definitive thud that made Julian flinch. Page 1, I instructed, my tone devoid of any sympathy. The official rejection notice from First National Bank regarding your $35,000 rent payment. It bounced yesterday afternoon. Julian stared at the folder as if it were a live explosive. His face, previously flushed with arrogant rage, drained to a sickly pale gray. A single bead of sweat formed at his temple. There must be a routine banking error. My offshore corporate accounts do not exist, I interrupted smoothly, cutting off his frantic lie. Page 2. Your actual, verified domestic bank statement, obtained during our emergency fraud audit. You currently have exactly $432.16 to your name. You are not a junior investment banker, Julian. You are a low-level assistant at a tech startup that filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 3 weeks ago. Even that replica Rolex on your wrist is financed. Julian instinctively covered his watch with his sleeve, his breathing growing rapid and shallow. At that moment, my cousin Chloe shuffled out of the guest hallway, rubbing her sleep-filled eyes. Her expensive hair extensions were tangled. Mom? Julie's all this shouting. She froze when she saw me standing in the center of the room. Why is she here? I thought you told the vagrant to use the service elevator and never come back. Chloe, shut your mouth. Julian hissed violently, panic fully overtaking his manufactured persona. He grabbed the folder with trembling hands, his eyes frantically scanning the highlighted lines of absolute truth. I turned my unwavering gaze back to my aunt. She had collapsed onto the arm of a crushed velvet sofa, her hands shaking violently. Page 3. I continued, relentless and entirely calm. The security camera logs from the lobby and private elevators. 42 distinct individuals entered this penthouse last night. Clause 7B of your signed lease agreement strictly limits occupancy to 15. The penalty is a non-negotiable $5,000, applied immediately to your outstanding ledger. Maya, please, Beatrice gasped, her voice cracking into a pathetic whimper. The crushing weight of reality was finally piercing her lifelong delusions. We are your family. You cannot do this to us. We just wanted to host a nice reunion. You own all of this? Why didn't you just tell us? Because you never asked, I replied, adjusting the cuff of my Tom Ford jacket. You only demanded that I scrub your floors. Page 4, Beatrice. The damage assessment for the hand-woven Persian rug Chloe ruined with cheap Cabernet. The replacement cost is $70,000, which completely liquidates your security deposit. Julian dropped the folder, the papers scattered messily across the pristine glass. We don't have that kind of cash, he whispered, his fake empire crumbling to dust. I am fully aware, I stated, retrieving a silver tablet from Marcus. I tapped the screen once and held it up. The bright display showed an official, court-stamped eviction notice. This is your 24-hour notice to vacate. Because of the fraudulent financial documents used to secure this lease, you are in criminal breach of contract. If you are not out of my building by 9 a.m. tomorrow, I will have the police remove you. And I will make absolutely sure they escort you out through the main lobby. Beatrice fell to her knees, the expensive silk of her robe pooling on the floor. It was a pathetic sight, watching a woman who had spent her entire life stepping on others suddenly realize she was at the bottom of the stairs. Maya, please, she begged, tears streaking her heavy makeup, ruining her carefully crafted facade. You have so much. You own 47 buildings. What is one single penthouse to you? Just let us stay here. We can be a real family now. I can host dinners, introduce you to the right people in society. You need connections. I looked down at her, feeling absolutely nothing. No anger, no pity, just the cold, sterile clarity of a completed business transaction. I do not need your introductions to society, Beatrice. I own the buildings society lives in, I replied softly. And we were never a family. A family does not throw their own niece into a freight elevator for wearing unbranded clothing. A family does not demand their blood relative scrub floors to amuse a fake investment banker who finances his entire personality on credit cards. Chloe, finally comprehending the sheer scale of the financial disaster, turned her fury toward Julian. You lied to me, she screamed, her voice shrill and echoing off the vaulted ceilings. She began hitting his chest with her manicured fists. You said you were a millionaire. You said you paid for this lease in cash. You made me look like an absolute idiot in front of our entire family. Julian didn't even try to defend himself. He just stood there, staring blankly at the eviction notice on the tablet, his fake Rolex suddenly looking very heavy on his wrist. The golden couple was dissolving before my eyes, destroyed by nothing more than a few sheets of printed paper and a simple, routine bank audit. We have nowhere to go, Beatrice sobbed, crawling slightly toward my polished leather loafers. If you kick us out tomorrow, we will be on the street. At least give us a loan. Just $50,000 to get a new place. You are a billionaire, Maya. You won't even notice it's gone. I took a slow, deliberate step back, ensuring she did not touch my shoes. I notice every single cent, Beatrice. That is precisely why I have it, and you do not, I stated, my voice echoing with absolute finality. Your financial mismanagement is not my corporate responsibility. You have 24 hours to pack your personal belongings. Do not attempt to take any of the custom furniture or appliances. They belong to Apex Property Holdings. Any additional damage will result in immediate civil litigation. I turned to Marcus, who was already signaling the ground floor security team via his discreet earpiece. Marcus, revoke their access to the private parking garage immediately. Disable the key fobs for the amenities deck, the pool, and the fitness center. They are restricted to this floor and the main lobby exit only. Post a guard in the hallway to ensure no fixtures are removed. Consider it done, Miss Lynn, Marcus replied, nodding respectfully. I didn't offer a goodbye. I didn't look back at the ruined Persian rug, the scattered eviction papers, or the weeping relatives. I simply walked out the heavy mahogany doors, the sound of my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Stepping into the gold-trimmed owner's elevator, the doors slid shut quietly, cutting off the sounds of Chloe screaming at Julian and Beatrice wailing in despair. As the car descended smoothly toward the lobby, I checked my vintage watch. It was 9:25 a.m. I had a board meeting at 10. The trash had finally taken itself out,